You're listening to the Holistic Spaces podcast brought to you by Mindful Design Feng Shui School, episode 346 Orchid Colors and Their Feng Shui Significance. Welcome to episode 346 of the Holistic Spaces podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and empower you to create your own holistic spaces that nurture and resonate with you. Laura Morris and Angie Cho are the founders of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School and authors of Mindful Living, a guide to the everyday magic of Feng Shui. We teach Feng Shui online at mindfuldesignschool.com. You can sign up for our mailing list for special free content, workshops, and events available only for our newsletter subscribers. So, right now, we have a lot of stuff that's happening. We're enrolling for our advanced training program called Pure Professor right now. And we just had a free workshop. And so if you're on our mailing list, you have a link to that replay, or maybe you came to that free workshop where our teacher, Catherine Metz, and me and Laura, we offered a couple special feng shui teachings. And then we talked all about our Peer Professor program, which is an advanced training program for feng shui consultants, feng shui experts, feng shui scholars. So people who have already gone through a feng shui training. And then we are open for enrollment for our signature annual feng shui certification program. So we only offer this feng shui certification program once a year. It's 6 months long. And Laura and I love teaching it. It starts in February. So we're open for enrollment right now. We have an early bird special and we have an info session coming up soon. So to get invited to all of that, join our mailing list or that's the best way. Because if you go to mindfuldesignschool.com/join, you can get all the information about all of our events. That's the easiest way to get all of our events. And we still have our giveaway going. So we are giving away a free mini home consultation for one of our very special listeners, whoever wins. And we do this every year. Maybe we'll make it an annual thing, right? So every year
Yep.
we do a giveaway and you just leave a review on Apple Podcasts or for our book. There's instructions on how to do that on our newsletter and you can enter our giveaway. We're going to select a winner pretty soon. So I think we're just going to have it available through September and we'll select someone in October. And then of course, the winner will be announced in our newsletter. So again, the best way to keep it up with everything is to be on our newsletter. Did I miss anything, Laura?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Well, you could in case you didn't know, you could sign up for our mailing list by visiting mindfuldesignschool.com/join. Or if you're on an app listening, you can go down to our show notes. Oh, there's one more thing. I'm also teaching a feng shui and astrology class for entrepreneurs with my friend Alice. So if she's an astrologer and I'm teaching lots of Ikebana classes, but all that is on my mailing list. So if you want to hear about Angie's own special events, you can visit angieshow.com/events. Okay. This episode, we are back in action. It's it's the fall, almost the fall. It's the fall, right? It's autumn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
getting
And
there.
Laura and I were thinking, what can we start talking about? And one topic that is very popular and we love talking about flowers, but especially orchids. So people love to hear about orchid symbolism and the meaning of orchids in feng shui. So that's our episode today. We're going to talk about orchid symbolism, their colors, their feng shui significance, what they mean in feng shui. So, orchids are a beautiful plant with flowers, and they have really intricate and stunning blooms. And there's thousands of varieties. One of our friends, Katie Hess, Lotus Way, they create flower essences. They have so many flower essences from so many different rare orchids, and they can be tiny, they can be bigger. It's a really gorgeous species of flower. So with these thousands of varieties, they can be very delicate, tiny. They can grow in soil. They can grow large and bold, clinging to the bark of tropical trees. I remember seeing them when I was in Costa Rica. And so for centuries, this beautiful plant, orchids, and orchids are more than just a plant or more than just a flower. They're also a plant, right? As with all flowers, they're a plant, they're a living botanical. And for centuries, orchids have symbolized in many, many cultures beauty, grace. And in feng shui, orchids are an important flower. And they're, I think, one of the first flowers that we learned about in our training, aside from like, you learn about the lotus, but I think orchids were one they were a flower that was very singled out in our Laura and I, our feng shui training as a flower that is connected to grace, charm, patience, and also romantic relationships, romance, right?
Yeah, orchids are something that we actually use as a feng shui adjustment. Orchids are one of the noble flowers. So it is, one of these flowers that is connected to so much more than just being, something that you'd have in your home. And the beauty of orchids as well is they actually can be cultivated and they can be cared for by average plant enthusiast, and we'll talk a little bit about some easier ones and to find and to care for. But I think orchids are quite accessible. I have 5 orchids and I don't consider myself an expert caretaker of plants, but I find with them, sometimes less is more. Give them a nice sunny spot, water them very little and just a small amount each week, and they seem to be thriving. So I'm lucky, I guess, that way. I also think that I have just sort of let them be. I do less and I don't try to over engineer their care. So it seems to be working for me. And again, when they bloom for a really, really long time. So they're quite lovely. I would say if you don't already have an orchid, it's definitely a plant that you should take a try with. And we're going to talk a little bit today we will talk about how to use orchids from a feng shui perspective, but we're also going to talk a little bit more about their colors and talk a little bit more about what that means for their symbolism overall. Orchids come in many colors. We're focusing on the colors that I pulled and picked really are assigned to orchids that are more commonly available. As Angie mentioned, there are thousands of orchids, but not all of these orchids are accessible. And so they come in so many colors. We're not saying these are just the colors that orchids come in, but these are the colors that you could possibly actually have in a pot in your home. So the first color is in different shades of, I would say, is the color purple. And purple, everyone has their different version of what purple is. And so this one would be, I would say, the, softer purples, that true kind of violet purple as well. And this is in feng shui, as well as with the orchid itself, is very auspicious. So this is a great color. If you're looking to choose an orchid, purple is a really great one to choose. Purple itself as a color is very noble. It is connected as well with abundance. And it is connected, the color purple is connected with wealth and abundance. So it has that additional layer as well.
Another color you might find in the orchid world that you could bring into your home are orchids that are deep purpley red. And deep purple, Laura talked about purple is, connected to nobility and abundance. But that red, that addition of red adds auspicious, lucky chi. So in feng shui, red, like the color of blood, it's color of our life force energy, is the ultimate, like, super lucky, auspicious color. And it brings in strength and vitality. So you have that combination of auspicious, nobility, abundance interwoven with the strength and auspicious vitality of red. We're getting very nuanced here with the colors.
And then another color, common color actually, of orchid that you can find is that magenta color. And magenta is an interesting color because some people would say it's pink, some people say it's purple. It's kind of in the middle, and depending on your perception of color. So it could be more to the fuchsia, or it could be more to that almost like electric purpley pink. And overall, no matter, sort of what you call it or what you think of it, dendrobium orchids often come in that magenta color. And it is so intense and so vibrant, it almost looks otherworldly. And so when you're bringing in that color, that kind of vibration of color of purple, it is going to shift the chi. It really is bringing strong, strong energy. And remember, we talked about purples as well, but then you also have the pink and the hot pink. You're getting into fire chi. So you've got this vibrant and intense purple that has all the qualities of abundance and prosperity, but then you also have this, vibrance of this underlying, hot pink, and then getting you into that fiery passion category.
By the way, if you would like a visual on these colors, we spent a lot of time focusing on color in our book. So our book, Mindful Living, is a great feng shui book, of course, because we wrote it with everything in mind. And it was very inspired by our podcast. And Laura put together the color chapter. And in tandem with the meaning of colors, the description of colors, and a lot of these colors that Laura's talking about, because Laura put together the most of the content for this episode. There are images where Laura hand selected every single image to illustrate the color. So if you're having a hard time kind of visualizing it, we would definitely recommend you get the book Mindful Living, because you could see like purple, deep purpley red, magenta. Laura has a whole section on magenta, soft pinks, and so forth. Okay, so we're leaving. We're on soft pink. Speaking of,
Hmm.
so soft
Yep.
pink, and in the book you call it like pink, for instance.
Hmm.
So in feng shui, pink is a color of love, of femininity, of self care, of softness. And so we can think of like a rose quartz crystal or like a pillowy, soft pink, like peony even. That's a different flower. But anyways, soft pink orchids symbolize love and self-care. So it could be an especially important color orchid for you if you would like to invite a partnership into your life that is prioritizing, focusing on love, self care, softness, receptivity, even goes into the section of like motherhood and being a mother and allowing yourself to be taken care of, or reconnecting your relationship with your mother. So all of those nuances are echoed and offering invitation in this color soft pink, especially with an orchid.
Yeah, soft pink is, I think, really the orchid color that you'd want to buy for yourself to focus on yourself. Maybe that would be the perfect color. The next color is white, and white is another very common orchid color. Next to the magenta, it's probably the one you're going to come across most often in, especially if you're just looking in your grocery store for an orchid. The only thing about white is from a feng shui standpoint, it's not really one we would choose if you are choosing to do a feng shui adjustment with it. So if you're choosing to bring an orchid in your home for feng shui purposes, we would say maybe pick a color that one of the other colors that we're talking about. White flowers or white orchids, they don't, in this particular instance, they're not going to bring in the auspicious energy that we're looking for. Having said that, you can obviously still have a white orchid in your home. They are always going to be beneficial. They're always going to still have the same qualities because they're orchids, because it's a living plant you're taking care of. It is not bad. It's just if you are sitting here listening, and especially when we talk about the different types of placements that you can do, you're saying, "Oh, I want to do that," then don't pick white. That's all. But you can I have a white. I have a giant white orchid and I love it, and it blooms for 2 months, almost longer. So, we're not saying you can't have them. We're just saying if you're choosing to do a feng shui adjustment, choose a color.
Next, we have yellow. So, yellow is a color that is pretty easy to find in the orchid world, especially if you bring an orchid into your home. I've had plenty of yellow orchids. And in feng shui, the color yellow represents earth element. So that brings in qualities of stability and strength. And again, if we think about the symbol or the meaning of orchids, which is connected to inviting in grace and charm and patience and possibly romance. A yellow orchid could be appropriate if you want to invite more stability and strength in your partnership or in the relationships that you have, or more stability and strength for you as you cultivate patience, as you cultivate more grace in your life. So, this is a really great color to work with.
The last color that we have on our list is peach or, salmon, but a peachy color. And peach is a very interesting color. Peach is a combination of yellow and pink. So you'll have those elements that we've sort of talked about, both stability, but also that softness and that love element, the love, that self-care. But there's also an interesting nuance to peach in the feng shui world, and it is a color that is connected to what we call peach blossom luck, which is a way to make yourself more attractive. Or when you have peach blossom luck, you are incredibly attractive to others, to potential partners out in the world. So, having said that, if you are looking for love, and you really want to put yourself out there in an energetic, charming, magnetic, kind of attractive way, you could pick a peach orchid. So I wanted to talk, and Angie, you might have to help me with some of these, because I was like, okay, I know I have some of these orchids at home, because I know people always ask, okay, what are the types of orchids that are easy to grow and that are accessible? So I think first off, if you're going to a flower shop or garden center or even your grocery store, if there's an orchid there, it's going to be pretty, easy to grow. It'll probably be a dendrobium or a cymbidium, which are the most common orchids. There is also an orchid that's called the moth orchid, which its Latin name, I don't even know if I'm going to try to say. And then there are the orchids that you see, the Catalia orchid, which is basically your corsage orchids. And then there is the ones that I really love, which are a little bit harder to find. And I actually, when I was styling a home, I used these beautiful big, because I wanted little touches of yellow in it, because I wanted to bring in that earth element. They're called mule ear orchids. And they're essentially like really tiny. They're like, I don't know, like half an inch little flowers, but they're all on like a trail along, and these big kind of bough branches. They're just beautiful and delicate. They're yellow, but they have little bits of burgundy in them. They're really pretty. But all of those are easy to grow, and they make good house plants. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't go to a specialty orchid place, and there are these places where you can go and, buy this like rare orchid. I don't know. I probably wouldn't do that. I would go to the easiest place you can find if you've never done this before, and just pick one. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about where to place an orchid as a feng shui adjustment.
So, what's the best placement for an orchid? The bedroom is one of our favorite spots for an orchid because in feng shui, orchids are connected to love and partnership, and they represent a charming and graceful partner. So, if you wish to attract a kind and loving partner or strengthen your existing relationship with your partner, consider placing an orchid on your bedside table or both side tables. And in this case, the best colors for this placement would probably be pink or purple, but go back and listen to what we offered and see which one works for you.
And if you wanted to take it maybe a little bit differently, maybe you don't want to put it on your bedside table, maybe that's not going to work, or you would like to play around with the bagua. So the bagua is the map that we use in feng shui, and you can do it on your bedroom as well. And each of the areas of the bagua represents a different part of your life. So if you're new to us and you've never heard of the bagua, check out our about 8 million different podcasts and blog posts on it. But there is actually a specific area of the bagua that you can place the orchid in to activate relationships or partnerships, or in our book, we call it nurture. And this area of your bedroom is also known in the Chinese word as kun. And this partnership area of your bedroom is located if you are standing in the door of your bedroom looking in. It is the far right corner in your bedroom. And so you could put a little table there or hang it, but you could place your orchid in the kun slash partnership corner of your bedroom. And then one other placement that you can do, it's one that, so when we learned how to use orchids when we were, studying, this is one of the very simple and fun adjustments for bringing, love into your life or a charming partner, as Angie talked about. You can put it in the bedroom, absolutely, but you can also place the orchid in a place that is very visible or where you're seeing it every day repeatedly. And so that would be the entrance of your home. So when you're coming in every day or leaving, coming and going in your home, it's the first thing you see and the last thing you see before you leave. So it sets this lovely tone of bringing, joy, welcoming in the strong and vital chi. Again, if you are focusing on adding more love into your life, you can even, it'll still do that. And when you're looking at an orchid to place in the entryway as sort of a greeter of chi, let's call it, one of the, or a couple of good colors would be magenta. Again, super easy to find, or that dark red, because red, both magenta and red are going to bring in that really vibrant energy. They're going to, supercharge the chi when it comes in, which is what we want. But if supercharging the chi sounds stressful to you and you want something a little more grounding and joyful, then choose a yellow orchid. It'll still do like that lovely greeting, of coming and going, but also it'll give you just a little bit more settled energy.
Before we end, we also wanted to talk about how you can use an orchid for personal growth and friendship, not just for romantic relationships. When you cultivate and care for orchids, it can be challenging and they do require a significant amount of attention. They're known to be pretty finicky, challenging, not something that's so easy to care for. They aren't that hard to care for, but most people don't find it very intuitive, and so they're known as challenging plants. So it could be challenging, but it can help you to grow, to learn to care for something and get out of your comfort zone on something that you think maybe you've done things a certain way. And so you have to do some research. And additionally, it can take time for an orchid to bloom, to flowers. And when they do bloom, if they bloom, the flowers last for a while. And so there's one aspect of that where the flowers, they symbolize longevity, they're strong, enduring. The blooms last quite a long time as opposed to, let's say, a spring flower like a cherry blossom, for instance. They don't last very long. Orchids last much longer, especially if they're cared for properly. And there's that other end of the situation where an orchid takes a lot of patience because even though the orchid blooms for many weeks, the the orchid may not bloom again for another year. And many people often discard the plant once the blooms have expired, forgetting that there is a whole plant there that can continue to rebloom. And so there's an invitation to reflect upon how that may mimic or give you some insight to glean some information for you, or shine a light on some part of your life where you may replicate that. And nurturing an orchid through the less visually appealing stage, where it's just a plant without a bloom, is an opportunity to practice that patience, that kindness, and with the right care and a bit of time, it will bloom again, especially if you do some research and teach yourself about how to care for this type of botanical, right? And then another thing you can do is gift an orchid to a friend. It's a really wonderful, beautiful gift to offer. And this gives your friend an opportunity to place it in their home, to invite in all these supportive attributes. And a gesture of a gift of a flower, like an orchid, symbolizes and celebrates a long lasting friendship, just like those blooms are long lasting. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Holistic Spaces podcast. You can tune in every Monday for a new podcast episode. If you like our podcast and this episode, please share it with others. You can subscribe, leave a review. You can always support us by checking out our certification, which is open for enrollment. You can check out a mini course. We have a little mini course available now about plants and feng shui, actually. And you can find out all about that by visiting mindfuldesignschool.com. And it'll lead you to our teachable course page where you can check out all of our courses. If you'd like to explore the world of holistic spaces and feng shui on an even deeper level, you can visit our website, mindfuldesignschool.com. You can subscribe to our podcast, and we hope that you will subscribe to our mailing list as well. So you can visit mindfuldesignschool.com/join to sign up for a mailing list. We'll share with you all the events we have coming up, like I mentioned earlier. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.